It's hard being human, and it's hard being a kid in an adult world. What are they being offered as far as, like, guidance in the world of human interaction? Giving kids a lot of space to be wild and allowing them the autonomy of digging those big ditches and filling them in with rocks and covering them back up just because that's what they wanna do. So, I like creating those kinds of spaces in Playwork.
Hi, this is Rusty Keeler, and you're listening to the Play Nature Podcast, where we talk about play, nature, playing in nature, and the nature of play. I'm glad you're here. Let's have a listen. Hi, Phoebe.
Hi, Rusty. How you doing?
I'm doing great.
Sweet,
Yay,
sweet.
yay, my first guest.
Whoa, I'm
Yeah,
so excited to be here with you.
I'm excited for you to be here. We'll just do this for an hour.
Okay.
No, I'm excited. Well, I learned something new today about you. I thought your last name was pronounced, let's see, Willamets. I didn't know. I was going to ask you. And then you,
I get a lot of things. I get wily yams a lot. It kinda looks like wily yams, and sometimes I go, "Okay, yeah, cool. I'm a wily yams. I'm kinda wily, so
yeah,
Yep, yep.
yes. But it's actually a spelling of Williams.
It's Williams. It's Williams.
Well, maybe we should introduce you. Now, I have your formal introduction for you.
Okay.
I
Yeah,
thought I thought I'd read that,
sure.
so people to get a little gist of what you're about. Okay, so Phoebe Wyllyamz is a playwork advocate and early childhood educator based in the Catskills of New York. She is currently a playwork co-teacher at Woodland Playhouse, where she supports child-led exploration and honors the autonomy of young learners. With years of experience running nature-based programs and creating play-rich environments, Phoebe empowers adults to trust children's instincts and embrace the messiness of real play. Her upcoming book, An Invitation to Play, The Playwork Guide to Trusting Children, Knowing When to Jump In or Step Aside, draws on these principles, offering practical guidance for parents, educators, and caregivers. Phoebe's work centers on deep listening, thoughtful engagement, and celebrating the unfolding magic of childhood.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's where it's at.
Yeah. Amen. Say it again.
I think the kids think so anyway.
Yeah. Well, tell me about that, the unfolding magic of childhood.
It comes from 2 different places. One is, like, grounding ourselves in ourselves so that we can present to a world to children in a way that they can expand upon versus taking away from that world by setting big restrictions, a lot of top-down authoritarian kind of management of children's play versus giving them the autonomy and the freedom to explore things that are valuable to them in their human experience. So then, there's always boundaries involved in human interactions and a lot of social emotional learning because we're not wild animals running amok. But sometimes kids take a long time to get there and they might look that way, Big energy and a lot of things that they're moving through in their own existence. And yeah, so it just helps them by holding that space for them to give them the autonomy to really dive into themselves and find
Hmm.
themselves. So, yeah.
It's interesting. There's always this push and pull, the adult's world and the child world, or the adult's view of what should be going on versus the child's autonomy and freedom,
Oh my gosh, there's
right?
so much, and there's a dance, and we're always doing a dance, and I don't want people to get the wrong idea that it's like child-led means just, like, let it all hang out and just doing whatever the kids want and just kind of, like, creating kind of a monster in that way of, just, like, them controlling everything and not giving yourself boundaries and what you want for your space or but giving them a lot of autonomy in what they're choosing to do with their play and spaces to engage in that.
That's one of the many things that I love about you, that I've always been inspired by, seeing your work with children. And, my own introduction to you is that you're a friend and you're a family friend, and my boys love you. You've moved away, and your name often comes up, and then we all say we miss you. My boys will say they
Oh,
miss you.
oh,
Uh,
I miss them too.
yeah, yeah, because they got to be a part of your playworking world,
Mhm.
in a few different scenes,
Yep.
and and I think that's why I always love talking to you about play, but also seeing you in action. And you have this innate, like, deep respect for children and what their interests are, their needs are. I always feel like you have this amazing, very balanced approach with children of their play and what they want to do and supporting it. And then you're there around the edges to, help things as they, if things get a little sticky, to help personalities or scenes or risky play or that kind of stuff.
Oh, thanks, Rusty.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thanks. Because
Absolutely.
it's super important for them to have that autonomy to get messy. And to get messy, I mean, not just like mud play and that kind of messiness, but being able to be emotionally messy. And I think that there's this idea that kids need to behave a certain way that the adults want to see them behaving. And so that muckiness that happens in that social emotional learning with messy play and having supportive adults around that are okay with that, like, squabbling stuff that we always see between kids. And it scares parents because there's this big word called bullying out there, and we're all very, like, sensitive to it, which we should be, in this world, but without that early childhood messiness that we help them understand how to navigate their communication skills with other children and how we, just bridging that gap for them, giving them the right tools to help identify some of these emotional feelings that they're having. Whether, I mean, you've got kids who've lost their parents, you've got kids who've, have different dynamics in their homes. And so they have to work all that out through their play. Like they have to. There's no other way for them to be able to do all that messy work. And when adults see that coming out in their play, it scares them. It scares them, and it's a big no-no, and it's like, shut it down," and we can't have that kind of play, or we get feedback from parents of, like, we can't have kids talking about, their bombs. That's a scary word. It's a scary word for grown-ups. For kids, they turn those things into, like,
Wait, excuse me. What word?
bombs.
Bombs.
Bombs. It's a scary word,
Okay.
right?
I didn't know if you said bums. And I
Oh,
thought,
no.
okay, no, but that's
Oh,
a
no,
whole
no.
other thing. Like if they're talking
Yeah,
about their
yeah,
bums,
sure.
that's,
Oh,
you might want to
man. Yep.
shut that
Shut
down
that down
too.
too. Yeah, exactly. When we hear these things from kids, they just, adults tend to want to just shut it down versus, like, figuring it out. Like, why are we talking about bombs? You know what I say to my kids in my class? When they start, like, potty talk is, like, super huge, man.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know, Rusty, I
Come on
introduced your
now.
kids to one of their favorite songs
Oh my
in the
gosh.
world. And, there's, like, that's one thing to be playful with it. And, we've all said, all different kinds of things. So,
Can we sing the song real quick? Just
oh, farting?
part
Yeah.
is, yep. Farting
Farting is a
is a
part.
part. Farting
Farting is a
is a
part.
part.
Farting
Farting
is
is
a
a
part
part
of
of
life.
life. Yes, that's a favorite. That's a much
Right?
loved
And
phrase
isn't it? And
in
isn't
our.
it though? Is it true?
It is absolutely true.
It is true. And
Maybe
so,
there's not much as true as that in
I
this
mean,
world.
and right, and it's so simplistic, right? But we, like, tend to be like, "Oh, we're not gonna talk about that." there's certain times that we don't really wanna talk about that, and that's one of those boundary things that, like, we can offer to kids is like, "Hey, we don't talk like that around the dinner table." Maybe your family does. Hey, I'm not knocking it. If it is okay within the realm of your dynamic, that's your business. That's your playfulness.
It's interesting being a play advocate because often we're just, the first step I always feel like is like saying play is important, lobbying for play, talking about the benefits of play, getting people to want to say yes to play more or risky play, but just play in general. And, so it feels like, okay, we're just trying to get people to just open up and just, say yes or be mindful of the kind of the top down, control of adults, ultimately thinking that play is like the natural expression of childhood and learning and growing, and children are connected to like their deepest selves in that. So we're trying to just like almost like let's let the shackles off, let's let the play flow. Okay, so that's the first step. But then it's interesting, like play and playwork and adventure playgrounds or schools that really go for play. Once you open up play and really follow it, then it does get messy.
It
That
gets really
right?
messy.
Then
Yeah.
it's a whole other like exciting journey, but it gets tricky when you really say, all right, we're going to really let it go, and we're going to honor it and respect it, but it is not going to be within what we think it's going to be. And so
Yeah.
how does the play work approach support that and help adults have some sort of guiding principle in that?
Yeah. It's very tricky. It's super tricky, and, I want to see it through. Like, there's a process, right? And so, like, I wanna see their playthrough, and I wanna see, like, between the kids, because social emotionally, we're gonna be meeting people our entire my focus is a lot on social emotional learning in early childhood development. So, and specifically like play and play work, because there's a piece of you that wants to see them like kind of edge themselves to where they're like able to just say the words, stop, just the word stop, you
Yep.
know?
Yep.
And giving them
Yep.
that
It's huge.
message of like, you can use that in play to help guide it. And once they have that under their belt, it's like this bridge that happens. So if things get messy, you wanna give you wanna offer them what they need, right? Because play work is about strewing things, right? We're gonna always have different materials out, we're gonna have a lot of loose parts,
Hmm.
but there's also, like, you're also giving information. You're strewing information. So I'm not gonna I don't want to tell a kid, "You have to say sorry," in a situation. But I do want them to have the understanding of, like, how the other child feels and how that might make them feel, and help them understand how to the choice to do that, to choose to handle a situation themselves.
The depth that you're talking about is very
Yeah,
different than the standard. You have to let everybody play, you have to share with everything, you have to, and
yeah,
you're talking about like, okay, people being able to own their own feelings or their own ways of doing things while you're also
yeah,
like giving hints or being a guide to be able to be there as an assistant.
yeah, and that's the invitation. So, kids know who their safe people are. They know who's going to, like, have their back, and, like, I'm working with early childhood, like, preschool kids right now,
Okay.
and you know that I've worked with, like, so many different age groups, but this
Yep.
is where I've landed currently, and the piece that I love about it is that this is their first introduction to really being with other kids in preschool. They're having more interactions, less adult interactions, and you're, like, bridging that gap. So, you see a lot of kids interacting that are, like, being able to identify their words and hold that space for them.
And I think about supporting play and even that idea of risky play. Like, I put risky play in quotes. That's a whole other thing. What is risky play? And I always say play, it's just play. And how can we just support more play? Because I feel like once people just embrace that idea that play flows and you want to say yes to it, then I feel, especially with early childhood, I feel like it's our role is not to stop stuff and police stuff, but it really is like you're saying that's social. You're like helping children navigate when things happen. There's a flow of play, and we want to support that. We love it. It's amazing to see and watch where it goes, and it amazes us.
Right.
But then things, children bump into each other,
Yeah,
emotionally,
yeah,
physically, and
yeah.
emotionally, and all that. And like you said, that's the time when they could use our support or our, just knowing that we're a guide.
Right, right.
And,
Exactly. Yeah.
and that's often different than maybe the average kind of view of what supporting early childhood play is.
Right.
Possibly.
Right. I mean, there's a lot of needing to control the whole day of what's happening through the day. So, creating a flow and having, like, times of transition is always necessary in a schooled environment where and even at home. I mean, even on my journey with my kids of homeschooling them, we still had a flow of our day, and there's certain things that you have to accomplish in the day, but giving them that bridge for them to be introduced to the value of community play and being together and learning those individual interactions or group interactions.
That's all new. I mean, we think about children, early childhood, it's all these new things. I mean, it's new, like balancing on a log. It's new, digging a hole in dirt. But it's also new, like, well, what happens if somebody takes the thing that you were just playing with, or bumps into you, or feels like they acted mean? Like, well, gee, what do you do with that?
Right, and so does the how does the adult react in that situation? Is it a peaceful situation? Is there a lot of yelling in the classroom or in a playground situation? If you're a parent and you take your kid, are you yelling at your kid or is another parent yelling at another kid? And like, what is that interaction? What are they being offered as far as like guidance in the world of human interaction? How is that being brought to them? And so that's really important to me. It's really important that it's being brought in a way that they're able to absorb it in a peaceful setting because, we don't know where all of these children or where each family is coming from and what their background is. And so it's like this, again, like a community dance. So I feel that being in the community and offering that piece of myself of being able to be patient and helping kids have fun wording or remember like how we can be in our bodies a little bit like it's really hard. It's hard being human and it's hard being a kid in an adult world. So I feel that giving kids a lot of space to be wild and allowing them the autonomy of, digging those big ditches and filling them in with rocks and covering them back up just because that's what they wanna do.
It's interesting because it's again, I think of that as like this, with play work and the adult role, early childhood educator or educators or parents. It's that dance between what the adult thinks and what the child wants to do. Often, I
Mhm,
hear different people talk about like, well, are we? How much of our when we speak to children is it directing? How much are we directing them? Go here,
mhm,
don't do this, don't do that. It's time for this, time for this. As a parent, I'm like, my gosh, yeah. How much is directing, or how much
mhm.
is like our agenda? What is your view, just in general? Like, how does play work? What is play work to you, and how does that philosophy match with what I think of as your inner knowing that you just are? You have this beautiful way of being with children, and it
Mm.
aligns with things, what I've learned about play work. But what is it to you in that role? That why is it important? Why is play important? Why is unstructured play important? And then what is the play work touch?
Yeah. Play work to me, for myself, it reminds me and I know that, like, this is something play workers always think about what was their, favorite childhood memory
Hmm.
of play, of being in play, and so it's that I encompass that space for myself, which is outdoors, being in the woods, and not having any grown-ups around. So, it's like, those are, like, the main things. It's just outside, playing whatever I wanted to play, I just created, and I and having kids around. We had lots of neighborhood kids. So, I like creating those kinds of spaces in Playwork. I like bringing kids to those spaces. Like, I want to help create that. I'm a grown-up in a play space for kids that in my mind, there shouldn't be grown-ups in that play space because this is like kiddom. This is like honoring the path of a kid, and that's like an '80s way of seeing things, but I'm from the '80s, so it's like I I deep down feel how much growth I had as a child at that time was very secure in that lifestyle. So I'm like, well, my parents weren't around during that time. There were no grown-ups, like, around. Now, there's definitely been this huge shift of safety and families wanting being more indoors, technologically speaking, that's also shifted things, and so it's harder to get kids out into those spaces. Why? I don't know. Like, I've always been had a calling. My daughter's the same way of, like, I need to be outside. I, like, need to be outside.
Yep.
So I wanna offer that to kids to have that experience, at least in their early childhood, and hopefully get some grounding for them of, like, enjoying our planet and being outside and having those spaces that now, why do I need to direct everything that's happening in this play frame, in this play space that we've created, no matter how big the play frame gets. Like, I'm holding this space. For safety reasons, parents know I'm here. They feel comfortable leaving their kid here with me in this space that I'm holding. They understand risky play. We all love risky play, and we all need to take risks. We need to learn how to balance. We need to learn how to do, for the early childhood kids, I'm seeing so much growth in monkey bars and stuff like that, which is really fun. And I could go deep on monkey bars because monkey bars are really cool. But I also like climbing trees. I think climbing trees is really fun and that's super risky. And there's always risk of falling and having it turn reckless super quickly if you're not paying attention, but I think that those are super important biological brain growth in children, and we're kinda missing it. Like, I feel like we're missing it right now. As an adult looking at the world, I feel like we're missing it.
There are children climbing trees, but you don't see it as much.
No,
It doesn't seem like
no.
it's
You don't see it. I mean, when we were over there at Wood Street
yeah.
Park in Ithaca, when we had the Just Play project over there,
Yeah.
man, those trees had kids in them a lot, and I was so thankful for that space, but it was funny because even in Playwork, you have one Playworker that is like, "Cool, kids in trees, they're climbing high, they're really doing it, they're feeling proud about it," and I'm just, like, here watching them, like and then you have another play worker that's like, "I'm not sure that I feel comfortable with climbing trees. I'm not sure." And I'm
Yeah.
like, "I'll be the person. I'll be the
Yeah.
person. I'll be right next to them, and if someone gets stuck, I'm happy I'll climb up there, or I will talk them down. I will talk them down." And that's, like, such good communication skills, so they're learning, body where their body is in space and time and, like, with their climbing and very good gross motor skills in their body, and then the communication pieces, oh my gosh, and the emotional pieces, I'm stuck up here and I don't know how to get down from the tree.
Mhm.
But then you're there. I remember when we had this whole dead end to ourselves as kids with, neighborhood kids, but it was ours. It was our neighborhoods. And my sister got stuck up in a tree and I didn't know what to do. I was like, I have no idea. You're up in this tree. We're probably like 8 years old, seven. My sister would have been 7.
Mhm.
And I ran home. That was like the only time I remember running home to get a grown up. was my sister
Mhm.
was stuck in a tree, and there
Mhm.
was a storm coming, and we could see it, and the tree's blowing, and it's not a very, like, big tree, and so I ran home, mom was home, she brought a ladder down and got my sister out of the tree, but it's like, you know what to do when you're a kid, I don't know, and that's why it's more important to get out there with other kids and play with other kids in the neighborhoods and do some exploring.
Yes, and sometimes you're called on to problem solve.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
exactly. The other issue is, like, people aren't used to seeing kids out now. Like, when do you see kids outside? Do you know what I mean? Like, the
Well, children are scheduled, children are indoors. It's not, you know, during COVID when things shut down, all after school programs and summer camps, suddenly it was like there were kids just in the creek, there were kids riding their bikes.
I know.
It was like this amazing thing. There were like kids out again.
Yeah,
Uh,
wasn't that cool?
yeah, it was very cool.
Yeah, and that's when I did my play pod. That's when you guys came and did my play
That's
pod,
right. That's
and
right.
I was really thankful for that, and what a nice thing to be able to do and have such a nice group of people together.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, that
Yeah.
was fun.
I think about your play pod and your philosophy with this and what you said about that you're there for the children. That
Yeah,
and,
I'm a
and
loose part. I'm a loose
you
part.
yes. That you say
Yeah.
you are in service of the
Yeah,
children, in service of the play.
totally. 100%. And that's not to say, like, where I currently work at Woodland Playhouse, which is really fun, and I have a lot of great coworkers there. We are all learning and growing together, and we have indoor time too. It's not just all outdoors, and so there's a little bit more management that happens of, like, our space and, like, but that is also part of life, and the inside space is very different for me. Is it different for you when you're inside, like, how you want to manage your space?
Sure. It feels freer as soon as you walk out the door. Like,
Right,
yeah, it's like,
right.
oh, okay.
I feel my most playworky when I'm outside.
Mm-hmm.
Inside is a little different. I have, like, some sensory stuff, so, like, loudness kinda bothers me,
Mm-hmm.
so and it bothers a lot of kids too, and so that's kind of, like, also the balance for me is being playworky inside, but also holding more space, like, holding more boundaries.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make
Mm-hmm.
sense?
Mm-hmm. That's interesting.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, and sometimes it's challenging. That's the challenging part for me, and that's the learning part for me is, like, how I wanna be with the kids is my outside me, because I feel freer, and the kids feel so free outside, so I wanna bring them, like, all of the things outside,
Yes, yes,
you know?
yes, yeah.
Yeah,
And then, just to circle back, so you mentioned the play pod. Tell about that. My kids were part of that, and it was incredible, and it was outside. I mean,
yeah.
I mostly remember it in winter, but
Yep.
it probably went lots of different seasons. But
It sure did.
yeah, so tell us
Yeah,
about
we
that.
did a full year, so a full, like, season cycles during COVID,
Mm-hmm.
and it was fantastic. I had so much fun doing it. We had 4 different families
Mm-hmm.
that joined in with their kids, and we played in it was just my backyard that had a creek running across the side, and I had some chickens that we did for COVID. We were like COVID chicken people,
Yeah.
and so we had our chickens out there, and it was just really, really sweet, and I had a carport, and a shed, which I've learned how important having a shed or, like, a big vehicle that you could slug things around in,
Mm-hmm.
because my shed held so much different loose parts, and it was great. So I just put a dresser in my garage and filled it with loose parts,
Yeah.
and I had a table for the kids to sit at, and we explored my creek and walked to McDaniel's Park on some days, and it was just, like, a really fun, sweet experience. It was just lovely. Yeah, and I'm glad your kids got to come, and we remember we did the crayon drawings on that hot plate? I
Oh,
had that hot
yes,
plate,
that's
and we
right.
made huge snowmen and put them in the creek and in the frozen creek.
Rolled the
Yeah.
giant snowballs,
Yeah,
huge,
yeah.
like, and because it was downhill, so they could
Downhill.
you had gravity working with you, so you could get these colossal,
Yeah,
as
and
tall as
we
me.
had a great sledding hill, and we
Yeah,
even, like, made banks for it, and the kids had just had shovels. You know, I wanna talk about loose parts for just a second here. I mean, we
yeah.
could always talk about loose parts, but, loose parts are really fun. Loose
They
parts are the
are.
best.
They
They're the best.
are.
And Ithaca Reuse was, like, my favorite place to go. I'm finding it to be really tricky down here in the Catskills of, like, tapping in of those resources.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Ithaca Reuse is yeah, it's sort of like a
It's a
secondhand
thrift
store.
store.
Yeah, it's like a
Yeah.
thrift store, like a garage sale. Like people just,
It's like a garage sale. Yeah,
yeah,
that's a really great
yeah,
way to
a
put it. Yeah.
gigantic garage sale. Prices are super low, and
Yeah.
things are on sale all the time. So
Yeah.
you get, I mean, we could list it out from
Pipes and keys and
bowling balls.
bowling balls and oh, you name it, it's there. If it's
Mm-hmm.
not, it'll be there next week. You know
Mm-hmm.
what I mean?
Yep.
But
Luggage,
anyway,
luggage. Uh,
oh, yeah.
That
So
was
we would
awesome.
just I would just go there and get loose parts, and we had I love pool noodles for a loose part, so
Yep. Yep.
we had pool noodles, and we just hung out, and we I would make a fire if we wanted to make a fire, and it was just really relaxed, and the kids just did whatever they wanted. Like, I was just there. I was just like, "I'm holding this space, you guys can play in my yard." You know? Like, it was fun.
Yeah.
Good times.
And yet, there were personality,
Conflicts,
yeah,
oh,
conflicts,
totally.
challenges, and
Definitely, always, and that's just part of it, you know? That's just part of it.
you were keeping it real,
Yeah.
allowing it
Yeah.
to be real.
Oh, totally, and allowing them to, like, asking for help. They have somebody there they can ask for help, like, on the ready, versus, like, me running to go get my mom. There's, like my mom is there, you know, like, right there and just, like, not interfering, but just allowing, and I'm here if you need me. It's nice. I like it. It's fun for me.
Well, you do such an amazing job. It's
Oh, thanks.
really inspiring because it's, to be around you. I just came and observed, right? I would come because
Yeah.
I just like hanging out. I want my boys to have autonomy and be by themselves too. But
Yeah.
it just made me feel good just to see it in action, and the way that you have, as your way as a play worker just feels so natural, and it's just,
Oh,
you're speaking to children. There's this almost as like a respect, mutual respect, almost as peers, like you're humans, I'm a human, you're humans too. And yet there's
yeah.
still the, like, they know that you're there as a guide, they can lean on you, they can come to you, and they're going to listen to you, if you're setting boundaries. But at the same time, like, there's such mutual respect that there almost isn't that.
Yeah.
When it's
Yeah, I know what you
really
mean.
flowing, everyone's just copacetic. Is that the right
Yeah.
word?
Right.
Everything's
Yeah.
just going.
Yeah. And there's conflict, like, there's some kids that really push the boundary line is. You know, if you set a boundary, they just wanna, like, step over it. They just wanna go, "What? I'm over here on this side.
Sure.
This is like," you know? And
Right.
that's the dance. That's the dance of, like, what where's the middle? You can always find the middle with somebody. You can always find the
Hmm.
middle and be flexible, and you don't have to be so rigid. And I think that that's, like that's where I'm coming from in this introduction to play, the invitation to play is that we're learn the trusting kids.
Hmm.
So it's like, being able to trust that they're gonna be able to say what they need and know that you're there for them. Because if there's no like, if you can't trust them, then they're not gonna trust you.
And that every day is different,
Every
and
day,
people
yeah.
have different days. They have good days, challenging days, no sleep, or feeling bad, or not
Yep.
enough food, or
Yeah.
or some dynamics will change because a certain kid isn't there that day, or
Yeah,
and all that stuff. And
definitely.
then, that's sort of also the beauty of, that idea of like loving play, honoring it. It's like this improvisation that's happening, and the play worker is part of that flow. So tell us, about this book.
Oh,
you are writing a book.
I am.
Yes,
It's just about
that
done.
is incredible.
So I started writing this book about play. I wanted to write it because I feel that we don't know as adults how maybe we just naturally interact with our children in our own way and but we feel obligated to play. We feel like we have to play with our kids. It's like our job to play with our kids. At least some people feel that way. I mean, I love playing with my kids. That's not it's not a job for me to, but there's some people that don't know, like, how to play with their kids. So, the invitation is more about how do I come into a play frame, which is just like, here's my kids playing or my kid is playing, and they're playing by themselves really quietly and exploring. Maybe they're pulling grass, maybe they're inside building Legos or and we see them working diligently on whatever they're working on or interacting with siblings, and we want to interject our own thoughts and feelings about the play. And so in that situation, that would be very intrusive for me to have someone come and just like interject themselves into something that I'm like deeply involved in. So I wanted to create this idea that we can step in and step out of play. And stepping out is just as important as like, well, if a child is wanting to have you play and they come and say, "Will you play with me?" Or "Come play, come play, come play." And that's why like my Instagram stuff is play Phoebe because I hear, "Play Phoebe, come play Phoebe," and so
Uh-huh.
that's an invitation because I'm a loose part. I'm like, I'm gonna play. It's not a no, oh no, 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 I'm not gonna play. They're asking me to. And I'm like available and willing and delighted that they've even allowed me to come into their play. It's very magical for them. Whether I'm just like sometimes I'm a tree. I'll just stand there. It's not
Mhm.
even anything, a lot of times I get thrown in jail. There's plenty of that happens. There's so many different scenarios, but that's the invitation. So I want parents and caregivers of kids to know like allow kids that autonomy of playing by themselves and allow yourself a break for yourself when that's happening that we don't have to overschedule that time with, "Oh, we should probably go. He's probably bored," or they're probably bored playing with whatever they've got themselves aligned with at home. I should schedule them for different sports or different things, but having that downtime to actually get into their own play and not feel guilty for allowing them that time to themselves and allowing you to have something for yourself during that time too.
Mhm.
Yeah, because that's so important, giving ourselves that rejuvenation. Yeah.
We could use it for our own play or our own rest or our own flow.
Yes. What does it mean to you to trust children in their play?
I mean, I'm a great like observer. I love her and I love observing play and just
Mhm.
watching play. And I think just yeah, I think it's like just I don't know. It's funny. I walk into spaces and I give off some vibe to children like, hey, this guy gets it. Like
Yeah.
I'm gonna come up and show him the, whatever I'm working on or and he's gonna somehow he just looks like he's gonna care,
Right.
like he cares about, and maybe other adults give off a different vibe,
Yeah.
but I do care. Like, well, all right, what are you finding when you're digging with that stick in the dirt, or
Yeah.
what is that thing that you built? And I when I get to the honor or the fun of watching play, like I mostly just kind of take a back seat. Myself just takes a back seat to everything and just kind of
Yeah.
taking it in. And then I love it when then suddenly someone comes and they bring you in and they want to tell you about it, and then it's super fun and engaging and surprising. And yeah, I was just at a school in Rochester, New York, and I was doing professional development with teachers day two, but day one was just going out with recess, and it was like, you know, school preschool through 12th grade. So I got to see all
Mhm.
these different ages, and it was just like watching it. And then some kids would come and interact and want to, me to be a part of it, and others just ignore me.
Yeah.
And just a fun just to see all the different types of play and kinds of play. And there's big kickball games with rules and them trying to work that out. And then there's kids that are bouncing on logs, or everybody at the swings, or and then there's kids that are just at picnic tables, just hanging out, not doing any physical thing, but just being there. And then
Yeah.
kids in sand and kids. And then I had a really funny experience where the kids were throwing sand. Oh, just no, like it was a windy day and they were picking up sand and just kind of dropping it, and they realized, oh, it's going like horizontal.
Mhm.
And so
Mhm.
they looked at me, and I'm like, wow, look at, that's kind of interesting. And then it was kind of, they had some name for what was going on and the sand. And then, I like that nature artist, Andy Goldsworth, and he would do these things where he would like throw mud up in the air
Mhm.
and take pictures of it, like frozen in
Crazy.
the middle later. So then I pulled out a camera and I was taking some pictures of that, and then other kids got into it, and I was, risk benefit, like looking at, it's not going in anybody's eyes. They're
True.
kind of away from everybody else. It's legit. They can do this. It's okay with me. Da da da. So they're doing it, and we're getting some good pictures. And then, of course, then somebody, an adult that's working at the school, comes over, sees them throwing sand, and then they're, oh, we don't throw sand, and okay, that's, whatever. That's a rule. I didn't know that, but even though it
Yeah.
was totally legit, it was working. But I see this one boy kind of giving me this look, like it was almost like, this unspoken thing of like, he's like, we were being okay. You were seeing that it was okay.
Yeah.
But then you were letting us do something, but that they weren't letting us do. And it was an interesting dynamic. And then that became a big conversation with the adults the next day
Yeah.
about throwing sand and all this stuff and rules and all that kind of stuff. And
Yeah.
so, so it's interesting. I think just that idea of the play work, or that an adult, the honors player, I might have affected that play with my camera, and
Mhm.
whatever.
Sure.
I changed it, and that's another conversation
Right.
about adulterating play
Adultery.
and all
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
But that idea of an adult that can be a part of it and on that level, and thinking that it is as amazing and cool as what the kids are feeling, and it really is. And then being able to, they trusted me, but maybe they shouldn't have trusted me in that
That's
moment,
right.
right?
That's
Like,
right.
this is an outsider, he doesn't
Like,
know our
"Hey,
school
man."
rules. uh,
Yeah.
but just that idea of just thinking it's awesome and loving it. But then for parents who, want to do that more and support, or educators, we feel like, we have to step in and for teachable moments, or that we have to have these set rules and all this kind of stuff, where maybe it's that freedom. And
Yeah.
so I think,
Well, that's why I
yeah,
think adventure playgrounds are so important, and I think there needs to be more of them in communities because it gives kids that autonomy in a space that they feel like they can really let their hair down, but I don't feel like there are enough of them in the United States. I think we need more adventure
yes,
playgrounds,
yes, we do. Yes,
and
we
we
do.
need just more kid-friendly areas in general, just in general,
Yeah.
we're just such an adult-bodied space. Every moment is so, like, not kid-friendly. That's why I think, you were saying something about kids just know that you're, like, one of them, like, you're okay. You're okay person to be around, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
That,
Mm-hmm.
I feel that wherever I go,
Yeah.
which is
I
like,
bet.
I go to the grocery store and kids will just, like they're just, like, coming up to me or, like and my kids, my own children are like, "Mom, you're like a kid whisperer." I don't understand
Yeah.
it, but, like
Kid magnet.
yeah, it's just like this it's very interesting, and it's the energy you put off, man. It's the energy you put
Yeah.
off.
They know you get it.
Yeah.
But isn't that wild? They can tell. I'm so glad you have taken that inborn vibratory kid,
Yeah.
cool in the kid world, and you then are doing it professionally too. Phoebe, I
Yeah.
am so great talking to you.
Aw,
Always
thank you.
getting together. I loved how at the NACI conference last year we basically just hung out, you, me, and my son Levi.
Yep.
We just hung out the whole
That was so
time.
fun. Uh-huh.
Uh, and I'm so glad that you've written this book.
Thanks.
Yes, that you're
Thanks.
getting it out of you and into our hands and our hearts to help, yeah,
Thanks.
to help us kind of
It's
see.
I appreciate you, Rusty, and I
That's
appreciate your
nice.
friendship, and it's always great hanging out with you, and yes, share those mud day pictures because that was so much fun. I love mud day.
We'll put a little clip of this, a link to it on Facebook too. Well, Phoebe, thank you for giving us an earful
Aw, thanks.
here.
Thanks, Rusty.
Yeah, great to talk, and we'll keep the conversation going. And you have a Instagram. People could follow you on Instagram. Is that right?
I do. It is Play Phoebe.
Play Phoebe.
Play Phoebe.
Okay.
Yes.
That says it all. I have a video of your play pod. I think it was it was like a either pool noodle battle or some sort of there was some good risky play at the play pod that I videoed, and I'm going to put that in the show notes too, so people can
Okay, cool.
see your backyard in action also.
Oh, cool. That's awesome.
All right.
All right. Peace out, Cub
All
Scout.
right. Okay.
Bye.
Bye. All right. Thanks for listening. Do you have a comment or a question? Email me at playnaturepodcast@gmail.com. You know I like talking about this stuff. And maybe we could use your question on a future podcast episode. As always, I have some free goodies for you in the show notes, including my outdoor loose parts guide. Fun stuff in there. And so I wish you the best in your outdoor play adventures. And when it comes to adding nature to your yard, or loose parts, or saying yes to risky play, my favorite motto is dream big, start small, and never stop. Oh yeah. Woo, 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 woo. Let's do it. All right. Have fun out there.